When I rise, I will rise like a bird joyfully. And when I fall, I will fall like a leaf gracefully. When I rise, I will rise like a bird joyfully. And when I fall, I will fall like a leaf gracefully. When I rise, I will rise like a bird joyfully. And when I fall, I will fall like a leaf gracefully. When I rise, I will rise like a bird joyfully. And when I fall, I will fall like a leaf gracefully.
Please join me in the chalice lighting words. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share. Good morning and welcome. Welcome to our worship. Settle yourself into your space. Take a deep breath in. Let it out. Our opening words are from Reverend Deborah Falk. A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundation of freedom, reason, and welcome, a faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that envisions a world flourishing with equality for all people, a faith that demands the living out of goodness, a faith that requires thoughtfulness, a faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all this within us. Come, let us worship together. Please raise your spirit and voice in our opening hymn, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Wenatchee for Immigrant Justice is a local grassroots organization that is an offshoot and member of Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network and works in conjunction with them. Initially, their main focus was on educating the Latinx community on Know Your Rights and providing accompaniment to court appointments, especially out in Ephrata where ICE and Customs and Border Patrol are prevalent. When COVID-19 hit and the courts closed, they changed their focus and partnered with their Latinx community leaders to fundraise in order to provide financial assistance to the people in our valley who provide and put food on our tables, clean, work in service industries, etc., concentrating on people referred by our Latinx partners, people who would not be eligible for government assistance. The outpouring of response has been nothing short of amazing. People not only donate of their finances, but hundreds of handmade soap bags, handmade face masks, including brightly colored masks for children who delighted in the fun, and colorful masks that actually fit them. So far, we have been able to help more than 240 of our community families with everything from diapers and laundry detergent, food for those families in quarantine, up-to-date resource lists, and more increasingly with rent. One of our families we helped was a single mom caring for 2 sons, one of which is a developmentally delayed 21-year-old, as well as a 12-year-old grandson. She worked full-time as a caregiver for the elderly, but because of COVID-19 and a need to quarantine, she had been out of work. Another example was a couple in their early 60s who were struggling due to exposure to COVID-19. The man had been working at a packing shed all week despite feeling ill. He was finally tested and found to be positive and sent home to quarantine and recover. Other family members were also positive, and one was hospitalized. We gave financial assistance, and one of our coordinators kept in daily contact. However, just as it seemed the man would recover, he took a turn for the worse and died. Lack of work and sickness hit this community hard, and many families faced with the inability to pay rent have moved in together. One of our coordinators visited 2 community members, referred to us, and found them living in a 2-bedroom trailer with 10 other family members. Although there is a moratorium on rent in place, an undocumented person lives in fear of eviction due to their status. As the harvest season approached, we began putting together bags filled with masks, soap bags, spray bottles of hand sanitizer, popular Latinx snacks, as well as Know Your Rights information and detailed education on health and safety during COVID-19. We visited many of the labor camps, handing out our goodie bags to countless workers and engaging them in COVID-19 education. The response from the workers was phenomenal. They were so appreciative that people from the community would care so much about them and their well-being. On one of our visits to a camp farther out, we found 6 men quarantined in a small house who were in need of food supplies. We provided a week's worth of food with instructions to call if they were in need of more. Then came the fires and smoke, which affected so many farm workers up in Brewster and Bridgeport. Once again, Wenatchee for Immigrant Justice partnered with the Latinx community and ran a 7-day fire fundraiser. In a matter of 7 days, we collected $12,000, which has been used to provide KN95 masks, socks, and other clothing items, personal hygiene items, food, travel, and assistance with housing for those affected by the fire and smoke. We helped a young man who had lost his passport when evacuating his labor camp to go to the Red Cross shelter in Brewster. We provided him with transportation and the resources to get another passport. Currently, we are working with a gal from Catholic Charities in Seattle, as well as the Family Health Center in Omak, to continue helping those who have lost their trailer homes and had no insurance. I have never before experienced the type of gratitude and goodwill from a group of people who worked so hard and were hit hard by the events of COVID-19, the fires, and the smoke. We cannot take away the sorrow and grief of our immigrant neighbors, but we can reach out to offer assistance and compassion. I want to thank those of you at CUF who have made masks as well as donated financially to help our Latinx community members, and thank you for making us one of CUF Share the Plate. 100% of your generous donations will be put to good use. In solidarity, not charity, Jamie Krish, Wenatchee for Immigrant Justice, and co-coordinators for Wenatchee Immigrant Justice, Marchui Albazar, Mary Catherine Dean, Irene Morrow, Alejandro Prado, and Beth Sattler.
Our wisdom today is excerpts from the theology section of the Widening the Circle of Concern report by the Commission on Institutional Change. Unitarian Universalism is a living faith tradition. From its origins in Unitarian and Universalist forms of Christianity, we have to expand our foundations into an expansive faith community tied together not by dogma, but by conventional relations. Today, Unitarian Universalism lives in our diversity in thought, belief, and practice. We hold the many/and of a vast range of practices, beliefs, and theological understandings. It can be said that contemporary Unitarian Universalism as lived and as a living tradition has two commitments: freedom of belief and its orientation toward inclusion, interdependence, and justice. These two commitments have shaped our faith tradition in positive ways and also led to some problematic dynamics. We have a deep and rich history, with religious ancestors who literally gave their life energies and life forces to allow us the privileges we enjoy today: freedom of belief, the task to search for truth and meaning, and the work to bring more justice into the world. Both Unitarians and Universalists were considered heretics by the Christian mainstreams of their times. The word heretic means able to choose, and if our traditions have anything in common, it is exercising choice in the search for deeper understanding and faithfulness. Yet the choice is the means, and the tenets of Universalism and Unitarianism, the legacy to be held close. Freedom of belief promotes diversity of thought in our communities and fuels the responsible search for truth and meaning that leads toward beloved community. This freedom encourages exploration and experimentation, lending creativity and innovation to our communities. Yet, over the decades, since the consolidation of Unitarians and Universalists, an overemphasis on individual exploration and experience as the primary, if not the sole center of religious experience developed. This centering of the individual decenters the communal as a locus of theological exploration.
The status quo within our world today reinforces a system in which some are treated as greater than and others as less than. This status quo is also reflected in our congregations and denominational lives. To counter this takes more than good intent. It takes a faithful commitment to a different way of being, accountability to our broader community, and the world we seek to engage. Among the original Universalist heresies were the ideas that Universalists should work to establish the kingdom of God in this life, and that a loving God would not condemn a portion of humanity to eternal damnation. That mandate, in the context of an increasingly divided world, calls upon us to address issues of equity, inclusion, and diversity. In the Unitarian tradition, we have the tradition of discerning truth based on facts, reasoning, and investigation. Our religious ancestors believed not only in the ability of each of us to discover our own truth, but also in the ability to find real truth in the context of our lives as well as in sacred texts and scriptures. This is the basis for our commitment to non-creedalism and aversion to dogma. It is also what calls us to look at the issues of the time. The word religion comes from the same base as the word ligament, something that binds together. To be religious is to be clear about what you are bound to in the way that a ligament holds muscle to the bone. The needed ties in our time involve our ability to see ourselves as truly interdependent. We need to recognize, in the words of Reverend Dr. Sophia Bentoncourt, we are the theological inheritors of teachings on universal salvation. There is no winnowing out of the supposedly unworthy that can be named sacred among us. It is our very universalism that is at stake when we turn away from the impact that our institutions have on the same communities and groups that society encourages us to dehumanize and make small.
One of our ancestors, Sophia Lyon Vaz, reminds us, it matters what we believe. As Unitarian Universalists, we have over the years revisited what it is we believe. Our early theological ancestors in Unitarianism and Universalism thought about this question of belief quite a bit, and many made lists upon lists of what is common among us. However, there are definite theological themes that have been constant throughout our history. Unitarianism was a response to the newfound wisdom when people were able to read and interpret the Bible for themselves. The early roots of Unitarianism were known as anti-Trinitarianism, meaning that when the Bible was read, people interpreted for themselves the Trinity was not a truth they could find. They interpreted God was one being. Eventually, as Unitarians revisited what they believed, they would also interpret their reading that Jesus was a wise teacher and a holy man, but he was not divine. Over the centuries, Unitarians have reimagined and re-envisioned the importance of nature, humankind, and God in their lives. Unitarian beliefs have been influenced by transcendental thought, humanist teachings, and the natural world. The one theological theme that has carried over those centuries of thought and influence is the idea each of us has the ability to use our reason to define and search for truth and meaning in the world. This means we have gone from the beginning of Unitarianism with a narrow vision of what people can believe to a wider, more accepting vision of beliefs. This means that we have Christians who believe in the divinity of Jesus and atheists who do not believe in a God at all. This idea of being able to use our reason to find truth and meaning that is valid for each of us defines how we can be a faith community of many believers. Universalism was seen as a response to the selective salvation of Calvinism. However, the idea of a God that is loving and accepting of all has been in the ether of religious world for centuries before Calvinism existed. In fact, it is found in the early teachings of the Christian church. Universal salvation became prominent when the religious message turned to only a select few will be saved and all others are damned. Universalism provided a light of hope to those who were living in a dark time with sin, being punished not only by God, but also in our public squares. Universalism provided people with a God who loved them and provided them with possibilities, not punishment. Although Universalist thought has not necessarily changed to the extent that Unitarianism has, we have come to believe in a more expanded view of universal salvation. The major theological theme we have brought into our modern time is each and every person has inherent worth and dignity. Love is available and accessible to all. When Unitarianism and Universalism merged in the 1960s to the Unitarian Universalism we know today, new theological themes emerged. There was a realization of the interdependent relationship we have with each other and our natural world. In that interdependence, it is understood that wisdom and theological thought can encompass all the traditions of influence from world religions to transcendence and awe to prophetic ancestors.
Humans have been asking questions about faith and commitment throughout history. In Jewish and Christian traditions, commitment was understood as covenant. God made promises to humankind, and humankind to God. In covenant, people promise to keep God's commandments, and God abides by the promises He makes. But covenant is very difficult to keep. Covenants were made, broken, and renewed. Our Puritan forebears in covenantal religion struggled in their time to understand how they might live a moral life and build a godly commonwealth. But they failed to ask, who is our neighbor? They failed to ask, Do I love if I love only my own? Religious triumphalism in religion and their greed for land led to violence and the slaughter. It led to the enslavement of native peoples of this hemisphere and those of Africa. Their covenant was inadequate because without including love for God's creation and its peoples, it produced a covenanting community turned in on its own. Our covenanting must strive to be inclusive and transformative so that we might nurture a world of creativity and peace. What responsibilities do we have? To what and to whom? UU James Luther Adams thought there was something greater to which we could commit our loyalty, to something he called an ultimate human concern. What is your ultimate concern? To what do you owe your loyalty and commitment? As we grow our personal understanding, strengthen, deepen our community, and practice spiritual justice making, we ask, what do we promise one another? How willing and capable are we of commitments that ask us to live our high aspirations? What promises do we make to our faith? What sacrifices are we willing to make to create and sustain communities of welcome, hope, and service? What promises do we make to the world? How do we become the people who others can count on to stand on the side of love? What do we promise one another?
It matters what we believe. For so long, our Unitarian Universalist history, we have struggled with the tension of individuals and community. We have a theological foundation that honors the individual, which at times has caused harm to the community. This is why, as a faith community, we hold dear the covenants we create to shape our communities. These covenants or promises to each other remind us that as individuals, we are responsible for the health and care of the larger community. We are reminded of the dedication and work we need to each put in to create the place where all individuals can thrive and find meaning. As we have come to know within our community, we can hold and understand the world, God, and humankind in different ways and still work together to be co-creators in our world. In the report from the Commission on Institutional Change, we are being asked to revisit that place of tension and understand all that it encompasses, all that it calls us to be in the world. Just as our roots of Unitarian and Universalism have shifted over the years from the re-examination of what it is we believe, this is a time for us to sift through what it is we believe today. What are the common truths we hold as Unitarian Universalists? What is it we are bound to? What calls us to widen our understanding of worth and dignity, of truth and meaning? What is our saving message in this day, in this time? I want to share what it is Sophia Lyon-Fahs wrote in her reflection, "It matters what we believe." Some beliefs are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness and the feeling of being especially privileged. Other beliefs are expansive and lead the way into wider and deeper sympathies. Some beliefs are like shadows clouding children's days and fears of unknown calamities. Other beliefs are like sunshine blessing children with the warmth of happiness. Some beliefs are divisive, separating saved from unsaved, friends from enemies. Other beliefs are bonds in a world community where sincere differences beautify the pattern. Some beliefs are like blinders, shutting off the power to choose one's own direction. Other beliefs are like gateways, opening wide vistas for exploration. Some beliefs weaken a person's selfhood. They blight the growth of resourcefulness. Other beliefs nurture self-confidence and enrich the feeling of personal worth. Some beliefs are rigid, like the body of death, impotent in a changing world. Other beliefs are pliable, like the young sapling, ever growing with the upward thrust of life. Let us pray. Spirit of love, help us to discern the truth and meaning we are called to live into as Unitarian Universalists. Guide us in finding the new ways to envision the world, to be in the world, and to widen our lens. Let us examine our place in the world and in our faith community and what it requires of us. Let us see where our individualism may impact the community and grant us wisdom to take a breath, ground ourselves, and find the larger truth we are called to uphold. May we remember and be grateful for the faith community we have created. Amen. Please join in spirit and voice to sing our closing hymn, Now Let Us Sing.
Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Now let us sing to the power of the love within. Now let us sing to the power of the joy within. Now let us sing to the power of the joy within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Now let us sing to the power of the joy within.
Please join me in the chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Now please raise your hands and spirits and join me in our closing song.
Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Carry the flame of peace and love until we